So one of the skills that got updated in the new skill rebalancing is Holy Angel Trick, which basically it does what free effects does, but only for Trickstars, because people were using free effects with Trickstars with Playmaker, and Konami doesn't really like that, so they gave the skill basically for Blue Angel as well. So the skill now, even though the text hasn't been updated yet, now what it does is, other than doubling the effect damage of Trickstar Holy Angel, it also you can also once per duel target one Trickstar linked monster you control and gain life points equal to its attack, which is useful because Trickstar decks, even though they are centered around burning your opponent for 100 for every action they take, the deck's playstyle in Duel Links is more focused on drawing 2 cards. It's basically a Pot of Greed with one of your Link monsters, except that you also need to discard a Trickstar, and also your opponent draws a card as well, but drawing 2 cards is pretty good, especially if you can draw into your powerful staple traps, and especially in the expensive version when you can play more expensive options, which can win the game on their own. Anyway, let's go over the cards one by one. First off is Trickstar Corobane. So this card could special summon itself if you control no monsters, or all monsters you control are Trickstar monsters. And during a damage step, when your Trickstar monster battles, you could discard this card from your hand as a quick effect, and that monster gains attack equal to its original attack until the end of the turn. And these 2 effects are exclusive, so you can only choose one of them in a single turn. You can't activate both of them within the same turn, so you will have to choose. Next up is the best card in our deck, Trickstar Candina. When it's normal summoned, you could add a Trickstar card from your deck to your hand. Most of the time, you will be adding the second best card, or you could argue that Light Stage is the best card, but honestly, these two do pretty much the same thing, and they search each other. So anyway, Candina can also burn your opponent for 100 every time your opponent activates a spell or trap. But you won't activate this very often in this version. In some other versions where your win condition is to burn your opponent, you will have this on your field. So when your opponent tries to activate a spell or trap, you will burn, and then maybe you could have another burn spell that also burns them for even more damage, like Dark Room of Nightmare. But yeah, that's for another version. Anyway, we have 2 copies of Licorice. It has a quick effect to reveal itself from your hand, and then return a Trickstar monster from your field back to your hand and special summon this card. And the reason why this card is so good is because it is a quick effect. So you could activate this during your main phase, your battle phase, your opponent's turn. It's really versatile, and it is really useful for both dodging your opponent's target effects and also pushing for a gain, because you could attack with your Trickstar monsters, return it to your hand to summon this card, and then attack with this card. Anyway, it has a second effect that bursts your opponent for 100 every time they add a card from their deck to your hand, and that includes drawing a card. And also, it includes in the draw phase, so again, in the burn version, you will want to have this stay on your field. Anyway, we have 3 copies of Nightshade. We're only playing this card in the free-to-play version of this deck, because we don't have 3 copies of Candina. Anyway, when this card is sent to graveyard as a link material for a link summon of a Trickstar monster, you could special summon back this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. So basically, this is a 1-card link to, which is pretty important because we have a link to that we want to summon basically every time we go first. And finally, for our last monster, we have 1 copy of Trickstar Lilybell. When this card is added to your hand, except by drawing it, you can special summon it, and it can attack directly, and if it does, like battle damage, you could target a Trickstar monster in your graveyard and add it back to your hand. This card is mainly a search target for your Candina or your field spell, and it's basically a free summon. So it lets you have more materials for your link monsters. And for our one spell, we are playing Trickstar Light Stage. This is a really powerful card. Probably even the best card in the deck, tied with Candina. It also has a search effect, so when this card is activated, you could add a Trickstar monster from your deck to your hand. So it could search Candina, and Candina could search the field spell. And once per turn, you could target a set card in your opponent's spell trap zone. When this card is on the field, that card cannot be activated, and during the end phase, you will send that card to the graveyard. So this is both a searcher and a backer removal, so it's really good at that. And also, each time a Trickstar monster deals damage, either by battle or effect, you can deal an additional 100 damage to them. And for our trap lineup, we have 2 copies of Floodgate, which is now free to play because of box chips. It's just a really good card in general. And we have 1 copy of Heavy Slump. This is a pretty spicy tech because if your opponent has 8 or more cards in their hand, you can shuffle their entire hand back to the deck and then force them to draw 2 cards. And that basically limits their starting hand from 5 cards if they're going second to only 2 cards. So you're getting rid of essentially 3 cards from their hand. And the way that we will be able to activate this is through the use of our Link 1 monsters. So Trickstar Bloom is our Link 1, we'll talk about this later, but basically we can go through a Link combo using a single copy of Nightshade that allows our opponent to draw 3 cards. So when their turn starts, they will have 8 cards in their hand, and you can shuffle them all back. And for our other traps, we have 2 copies of Different Dimension Ground, and 3 copies of Cloak and Dagger. Honestly, these could be any trap that you like all the traps are replaceable, but I'm just playing these because they are pretty cheap. For the extra deck, it's mostly Trickstar monsters. We have the Link 3, Foxglove Witch. This is probably the biggest monster we have in the extra deck, and it is actually more generic than any other Trickstar Link that we have. It only needs fairy type monsters. Not that it matters, but it's just a funny thing to point out. And if it's special summoned, you can inflict 100 damage for each card you control. If it's destroyed by battle card effect, you could special summon a Link 2 or lower Trickstar from your extra deck and then inflict another 100 damage for every card that your opponent controls. And next is Trickstar Crimson Heart. This is our main Link 2 monster. We're playing 2 copies because it's really good. Basically what it does, it allows us to draw 2 cards, even though we do have to discard a Trickstar card to activate this effect. And normally it only draws 1 card, but if your life points is 2,000 higher than your opponent's, you could draw 2 instead. That's why we were playing this skill to increase our life points by the attack of one of our Link monsters, which itself has exactly 2,000. And that is also why people previously played Trickstar with 3 effects, because it also has the same effect to gain life points based on one of your Link monsters' attack. Anyway, we have 1 copy of Trickstar Holy Angel. Each time a Trickstar is normal special summoned to a zone that it points to, you inflict 100 damage. Trickstar monsters it points to cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects, and if your opponent takes damage by a Trickstar monster effect, this card gains attack equal to the damage they take until the end of the turn. And remember that because of your skill, it deals double damage, so it deals 200 damage every time you summon a monster. We are playing 1 copy of Hippo Shinigami. It's just a generic Link 2 that we could play to boost our monster's attack by a bit. We have 1 copy of Trickstar Divaridis. Anyway, it has a pretty harsh restriction on its summoning condition. It needs 2 level 3 or lower Trickstar monsters. That means you can't use other Links, or you can't use Candina or Corobane. But every time your opponent normal special summons a monster, you could inflict 100 damage to your opponent. So this card is probably by far the easiest to trigger its burn effect out of all the Trickstars that we have. But since our win condition isn't to burn our opponent, we are not playing more copies of this card. And also it's pretty hard to summon actually. And finally we have 2 copies of Trickstar Bloom. We're playing them because we need to link away our Nightshade to trigger its graveyard effect to special summon back itself, and also we're playing a second copy so we can force our opponent to draw more cards, because every time it's link summoned, you could choose to let your opponent draw a card. You could not do that, and most of the time you don't want to, because you don't want to give your opponent more cards, but if you draw a heavy slump, if you're going first, you will want to summon 2 copies of the Link 1 and then summon the Link 2, and these 3 Link monsters will draw your opponent 3 cards and make them have 8 cards in their hand to activate this funny little trap. So this is the expensive version of the deck. As you can see, we're playing 3 copies of Candina, we're playing Forbidden Lands, more expensive Stable Trap, we're playing especially Crackdown because it steals our opponent's monsters and you can use it as your link materials. And most importantly, we're playing 3 copies of TRICKSTAR Festival. This is basically a spell card that gives us 2 free TRICKSTAR monsters for us to use as link materials. And because it doesn't use our normal summon, you could use it on other monsters like Candina. And also it has a pretty good graveyard effect to banish itself from the graveyard to protect one of your TRICKSTAR monsters from being destroyed by battle or card effect, which comes up a lot, especially if you're playing cards like Needle Sealing, which pops your own monsters as well. And the extra deck, it's pretty similar, but we're also playing expensive options, not necessarily expensive, but more good generic like monsters from other boxes, like Nightmares, Nightmare Phoenix, Nightmare Unicorn. And also, I like to play Rastliger. I don't know why not a lot of people are playing this card, but I like playing this card because it allows you to link on top of Unicorn, and then you can target Unicorn in the graveyard to gain its attack, and then it itself will have enough attack for a lethal blow by itself. And also, you can tribute monsters that it points to destroy your opponent's cards, so I think that's pretty good. So we are playing that, and also we're playing the TRICKSTAR Link 4, which has a pretty interesting effect to be not affected by any activated card effects if it points to no cards. So, and also if it points to no monsters, you could inflict 100 damage for every TRICKSTAR monster in your graveyard with a different name. This won't come up very often, but it's nice to have a TRICKSTAR Link 4 option. If your opponent doesn't have a monster in the zone that it points to, and this might be a pretty tricky card to get rid of if your opponent only has backer and no monsters, so its protection effect will be alive. Okay, so let's quickly talk about what's good about this deck. As you already know, this deck has a pretty consistent way of making your link monsters, especially with Crimson Heart in combination with your skill that gains you life points. It's basically a Pot of Greed with a discard. But one of the biggest problems is, of course, you need a discard for that, and also you're giving your opponent a draw, which might not be a good thing. And also, a major weakness of this deck is how reliant on traps it is, because the TRICKSTAR monsters themselves don't really do a lot. Their attack caps out really low. Crimson Heart only has 2,000, Holy Angel only has 2,000, and Link 3 only has 2,200. The only way you could beat over your opponent's monsters is by using Corobane's effect, which is a hard once per turn, and also during the turn you use its first effect, you cannot use the attack boosting effect. So it's really tricky to beat over your opponent's high attack monsters, especially if they have multiple of them. And yeah. I think the expensive version definitely solves a lot of the problems of this deck, because TRICKSTAR Festival provides a easy way to get your link monsters, as well as giving them protection, and also you could play stable traps that also get rid of your opponent's monsters, so you don't have to beat over them. But this free-to-play version is actually still not bad, as long as you fuel it up with good stable traps that you already have. You don't have to necessarily play what I play. I'm just demonstrating there's free-to-play stable traps that you could play in this deck. But of course, if you have more expensive options, you should definitely play those. Okay, so let us look at some replays. We're going first. That is pretty good. As a deck that plays a lot of traps, we really want to go first. And our opponent is playing Synchros. They're playing Speedroids, and we opened a field spell, which is wonderful. Which means we could grab our Candina, and Candina will grab ourselves a Lilybell, and the Lilybell will special summon itself. And we will use our Licorice to grab back the Candina for next turn, so we have another search. We'll link the 2 off for Crimson Heart. Crimson Heart will activate its effect, but before we do that, we'll use the new effect of our Holy Angel Trick skill to gain a bit of life points, and then discard a card to draw 2, set 2, and pass. Our opponent will be activating their Wind the Wind Channeler to search their starter. They actually already have Turret Top, so they don't have to search it. They can search Double Yo-Yo with that. They're going to activate the skill to mill a Den Daiko Duke, and we will chain Cloak and declare Red Eye Dice because that's probably the best tuner that they have. But they already have another tuner which they will summon, and they're going to grab a Book of Moon. But before they Synchro Summon, we will declare Clearing Synchro Dragon so they can't summon it and then use their skill to make a Crystal Wing. So he's going to make a Sci-Fi Lord Zeta and attack over our Link, but during our turn we could normal summon the Candina that we just got back. We'll just go to battle, attack over our opponent's Zeta by discarding our Corbane to boost its attack, and because Zeta only banishes special summoned monsters, we will not be affected by it. Anyway, we will Licorice to bounce back to Candina, summon back to Candina, grab another Corbane. We will special summon the Corbane this time, because we could attack over our opponent's monsters and deal quite a bit of damage. And the burn effects of Trickstars really come in handy when your opponent has a really low life point, because basically whenever they do something, they will have to consider the fact that they might lose to the burn effects. So, for example, we have Candina, so every time he activates his spell, he's gonna take 100, and also our field spell will deal another 100. So he's gonna add a card which triggers the Licorice, it deals another 200 total, and he is down to 100, so he couldn't add any more cards, and he tries to summon the dice, but we have the cloak for that, so it really doesn't matter. Okay, this is the second game. We are also going first, and this time we are facing against Pendulums. Let's see how good our deck is against them. We did draw Heavy Slump, and we did have a level 1 Trickstar, which means we could do the funny little hand shuffle combo. And because we're going first, we could do that without any interruptions. We're going to make the 2 Link 1s, which allows our opponents to draw 2 cards. We're going to make the Crimson Heart. We're going to gain a bit of life points with Holy Angel Trick. So we draw 2, we're going to discard 1, and we draw 2, they draw another 1, and now, after the draw phase, they have 8 cards in their hand. And even though they chain MST, it's not going to save them. Look at our opponent's hand, it's all shuffled back. And with not many options, he's going to set 1. We're going to draw 2 again, since we could. We're going to normal summon the Candina, and I don't think that 1 card is going to stop us. He has a Book of Moon, but we could chain a Licorice, which bounces back our monster and dodges the target effect. And Candina will also burn him for a bit of damage, and he will scoop. This is the expensive version, and unfortunately this time we are in fact going second. But I believe because we're playing the expensive version, we have a lot more options even if we go second, and I think we probably could play through a negate or 2. Our opponent does have the win, which means they could combo off really successfully. They're gonna summon the Turret Top, grabbing the Double Yo-Yo, they're activating the skill, milling the Daiko Duke, they're gonna do the Synchro combo, make Clearing Synchro Dragon. We're gonna wait for the animation. activate the skill again, summon a dies. We couldn't do anything to stop them at this point, but we probably could play through one negate. He's gonna make another monster, set 2 and end turn. So let's try to summon Candina. He will negate our Candina, but that's fine because we're playing the expensive version, so we have Festival, which means we could still at least make ourselves the Link 2 and try to draw a couple of cards. So we will do just that after gaining a bit of life points with our skill, and unfortunately we did not draw any traps, which is pretty sad. We really need a trap to get rid of our opponent's Crystal Wing, and it had 4800 attack, so we couldn't beat over it even with our Coral Bane, so we were forced to attack the Clear Wing. So the Crystal Wing will be a pretty annoying card to get rid of, but thankfully we do have a Festival in our graveyard, so he couldn't beat over our Link, so we could try to Crimson Heart. And gain a bit of life points, we're going to normal summon Candina. He's going to negate again, but he does have a attack position low attack monster, so we'll try to make Link 4, and it's not affected by his effects, but he could Book of Moon his own monster, which he's going to do to prevent himself from taking any battle damage. And we still couldn't beat over his Crystal Wing because it just has too much attack. But opponent is going to search some cards, make Squire Saga, and I think he thinks he could pop me, but because he didn't read my cards, he should have summoned it in a zone that it points to, so it turns off the protection effect. But yeah, people don't read, so we do have a Festival which protects it, so next turn we can just activate the burn effect to burn him for a game, so he is going to scoop here.